Welcome back to the program. Of course, I promised you that there is a lot on this other side of the break. Today being Tuesday, we are actually focusing on matters women. Even in this holiday mood, we cannot go without addressing that issue. We want come next year, come 2017, the girl, the woman in Kenya has an environment that they can be able to grow, opportunities that they can be able to be better and perform better in the society. So today, there was an article that was done recently by the Daily Nation that was just asking a very crucial question, something that inspired this episode. Is it hard work to be a girl? That's the question they were posing there, and quite interesting issues that were coming out as some of the challenges that are facing the girl child today and women in Africa, things that would make one ask, is it hard to be a girl? And that is what we want to ask today, trying to focus on those issues. And of course, helping me do this is none other than Miss Susan Chege, who is the County Engagement Coordinator of Women and Girls Lead Kenya. Yes, she is going to help us unpack this important question throughout, just highlighting some of those challenges that are facing women and girls out there. Welcome to the program, Miss Chege.
Thank you, Safin. I'm glad to be back.
Glad to be back. Glad to have you.
Asante sana. Hey,
Yeah.
asking very important questions.
Is it hard to be a girl? Let me start there. What would you say?
I'd say in this day and age, it's hard to be a human. You know,
Really?
there's a lot needed from us now, more than ever, even if we've had a lot of progress over the years. And as we speak specifically on girls, I think it's a fantastic time to be a woman and a girl, but the challenges that we're facing as we continue to progress are still there. And so that's what I'd love us to explore today. Even as we explore and celebrate womanhood and the beauty of being female, also acknowledge that there are things we can do better, and the support that we need in doing that.
In doing that,
Yes.
indeed, you will be helping us understand just how, you know,
Right.
and what place in that support can we take as a society.
Absolutely.
Because based on your experience, the CEC of Women and Girl Lead Kenya, of course, you've had a chance to interact with the girls in the grassroots levels and even had a chance to understand some of the issues that they're going through.
Right.
But before we get this conversation started, one of the issues that were raised in that article is actually based on a research,
Yes.
a report that was released by UNICEF.
Yes.
This was at around the time when we were celebrating the Day of the African Girl
Yes.
in October.
Yes.
And it touched on something that most people would see as going out of the ordinary.
Yes.
Housework.
Yes.
You know, in our culture, what we are brought up to understand is that housework is part of a girl's life. You see, but getting to a point when housework is being addressed as a challenge,
Yeah.
then we need to go back and ask ourselves, why is housework becoming a problem? Why is it being addressed as if it's an infringement on the right of girls?
Right.
That's the question I'm asking.
Very important. And the report you're referring to, Harnessing the Power of Data for Girls, was released on 11th of October. And first of all, even before we get into it, there are two important things that emerged. Number one, data, like now we can quantify how many hours girls spend on housework, which
Yeah.
is paramount, because usually what can't be measured can't be managed.
Can't
And
be
now
solved.
knowing that girls after school spend 5 hours, 6 hours doing housework, now we'll know what sort of solutions we can bring in. And number two, recognizing that there is invisible work that's being done and not really being accounted for, that is stealing time from girls to pursue things like studying, playing, etc. The report was talking about unpaid labor. So these are things such as doing laundry at home, fetching water, fetching firewood, taking care of other younger kids or the elderly. And just to start off, it's normal. House chores are normal.
That is, let me just you know, bring out something there.
Yeah.
The list of you know, daily work that
Yeah.
you're mentioning there, like fetching water,
Right.
cleaning and doing that.
Yeah.
to most families, even the ones that are watching, it is normal for a girl to do that. My question is, when did it become an issue that we have to do research, that we have to address, that we have to talk about girls doing work and see it as a problem?
Okay.
Where did we miss the point?
So, just to start off, there are normal duties we need to perform at home. Living in a family, of course, there'll be dishes that need to be washed, people we need to take care of. But where the problem comes in is if you're doing this for an extended period of time, that is stealing time from you studying, you socializing with friends, you taking part in a hobby, getting to learn more about yourself. So the problem is not in the duties themselves.
That you're doing?
The problem is that there tends to be the aspect of burdening the girl to do all the work. So you'll find duties themselves.
That you're doing?
The problem is that there tends to be the aspect of burdening the girl to do all the work. So you'll find, I think even in the article you're mentioning with Daily Nation, they gave an example of a girl who leaves school, same time as her brother, but once she gets home, she goes to start chotaing maji. Downstairs anaenda, ground floor, back to top floor, downstairs again, up, down. All the time when her brother is on the phone playing mobile games.
With a visitor.
With a visitor, chilling. And so once the reporter is asking, why don't you asking the boy, why don't you help your sister? He's like, oh, it's her work, you know. So I think beyond that normal work we do for an hour at home after school, that's fine. But the problem comes where you're doing it for 3 hours, while your other siblings
is not doing
of another gender is relaxing. And there's a danger to this because the first two things is that you're sacrificing your time. So the time you should be sitting doing your homework is spent fetching water, as opposed to sharing the work with your brother, and then the time doing the task is halved. The second problem is that it perpetuates the stereotypes. So the brother believes it's the woman's work because she's the one who's always sent. She's the one who's always told to wash the dishes. She's the one who's always told to pick my clothes. So we're socializing our children to believe that these tasks are for girls.
But when is it like, or who said that girls are the ones who are supposed to be doing all the work in the family? Is that the ideal situation?
I don't believe so, because
and answer this question in context with our African culture, because there are just things about culture that you cannot mess with.
It's absolutely true, but you find that culture evolves. In the homestead, you find that there were tasks that needed to be done. So if the lady or the girls were staying home to cook and clean, the men were out with the goats, the sheep, farming, etc. So in the cultural context, there were tasks for each gender. Now, with the state of the world, we're not herders. Most of us go to the office, for instance. Most of us, majority, go to the farms. So their needs and let me mention, the cost of living keep increasing. So you find in a homestead, the parents, the mother and the father, need to find means of sustaining the home. And if, for instance, the lady goes to the office 9 to 5, still has to come back home, do the housework, it means, or others have to leave work altogether to care for the kids and work at home. So that means that there's either the double burden of working full-time at home, full-time at work, or then you're losing opportunities for finding work, because then you're burdened at home with all this work. How will you manage to look for all these other means to sustain your family? So that's where the challenge comes in that you're sacrificing time that could be used to either look for jobs or make money here. And I think when we're talking about culture, culture evolves. Culture is not static. and we need to be more reasonable in how we interact at home.
Okay.
I think the day is here for parents to recognize that my girl child is not here on earth to shoulder the burden of taking care of the homestead. And that for this girl's future, her going to school and her excelling in school, finding hobbies, creating friends and networks, that is what will propel her to be a stronger contributor in the nation. And that's not to say that then the work should be shouldered by boys. It's to say that work needs to be redistributed among the people living in that homestead.
Everybody.
Yeah, among everybody.
The parents, the children, the people who could be staying with the family.
Exactly.
So it should not be left to the women alone.
No.
But at the end of the day, when we are talking about this issue about about housework, we are saying that there is no problem with girls doing work.
Yes.
Actually, there is nothing wrong with a girl doing housework. In fact, it's recommended that as a mother you teach your child how to do 1 or 2, 3 things, even if you have a house help. But again, the problem that we are addressing today, my viewer, is the hours that are spent compared to what the boys are doing. Because when you're talking about equality, when you're talking about empowerment, while the boy is out there studying and doing homework, the sibling of the same age is fetching water and cooking and preparing supper for the family. So the problem is actually with the distribution of the work and then the number of hours that the girl spends in the work compared to the boys. So on that note, I'll take you just through that report that we've been talking about, just for you to get to understand the figures. Now, this report actually says that globally girls between the ages of 5 to 14 spend 40% more time, which is approximated to be about 160 million more hours a day doing unpaid housework and collecting firewood and stuff. This is in comparison to the boys. And then it also shows that there is actually a disappropriate burden of the domestic work that begins early. And the way the girls grows, even the work increases. You know, so they start by washing dishes and cleaning the table, but with age, the works keep increasing. Like at one point, the mama will say, you know, take care of the child, then it increases prepare lunch, then lunch becomes prepare lunch and supper, then it becomes do laundry, then it comes take care of everything, you know? So with age, as the girl grows, the work increases. And this girl, as she grows, we forget that by the time she's growing, she's actually now getting to understand herself and understand some of the opportunities that she wants to partake.
Absolutely.
So when you burden her with work at home, then that brings the problem there. So the problem is not the work, but the hours that are spent doing work. And still on that issue, probably just to finish that part about housework, what would you tell us? What's the way forward? How do we manage to change this narrative? How do we manage to change this narrative?
Well, you see, there's so many aspects to it because we have to understand the context that the girl lives in. Is it a rural girl? Is it an urban girl? And I think in the article you're mentioning, the mom was like, I don't even wake up to make breakfast. I just find it's fixed. It's fixed. The kids have been dressed, you know.
Whoever is fixing the breakfast is supposed to be preparing for school.
Herself for school. So I think the first thing is for parents to be more conscientious on what they're assigning to children. Some tasks are adults' tasks. So they should be more involved in the assigning and the timing of the tasks. It's good to give kids tasks. They become responsible. They understand more about planning their time and managing their energy, things like those. So they grow up to be very mature and responsible. But where now we burden them, that's a problem. So the first thing is to recognize that assign to children what children can do within reasonable time so that it doesn't steal from their playtime or their school time. And number two, redistribute the tasks fairly in the homestead. Show boys that you need to be responsible for when you leave the home, when you're a bachelor, and when you marry, or marry a lady, because these responsibilities eventually will have to be shared in terms of who brings income to the house, how do we raise the kids, how do we plan for our children. So there's a progression into that responsibility and bringing men into responsible, boys into responsible adulthood. A third thing is then how do we reward also this unpaid labor or invisible labor of women, and that has been a challenge as well. Because for a long time, it's not been so much on the forefronts of our minds, but now we know we do 30% more than boys at this age, we do 40% more at this age. I think even in the report, it was showing country by country.
Yeah.
Somalia, for instance, 68% of girls tend to do more work. In Rwanda, I think they cited 48 as well. So these statistics are very important in really giving us
The
accurate, true pictures. Exactly. And so in terms of recognizing, redistributing, and now rewarding, and that's important.
And that begs the question.
Yeah.
When you talk about reward, what exactly do you mean in terms of reward? Should a girl be paid for doing dishes at home? That's just out of curiosity. What sort of reward? How best do you see this being done?
So that's just something I was thinking about actually, because when we're talking about opportunity cost, we're saying just imagine if this girl or this woman was contributing in the economy formally, how much more in the GDP would we see in the rise in? So you see there's the aspect of removing the woman and putting them into maybe the office or somewhere they're being paid for their work. But if they're going to stay at home, then what would that look like in terms of reward? Is it a welfare system? Is it a system of registering the work you do or who you're caring for? Like, so those would be policy issues. And one of the things is that sometimes governments focus a lot more on things like defense and security and leave a budget much more little on education or water and sanitation. So in terms of reward, it could even mean that, we know the communities in, say, Samburu walk 5 kilometers a day to look for water. Can we ensure that boreholes are dug every kilometer?
I now get your point.
Or we understand that agriculture, most women work in agriculture, but remuneration has been tricky. What if we find systems of paying them better, eliminating brokers who pay so little for the produce they've spent planting. So those are solutions that need to be thought of, putting the woman and the girl at the center of it, and hearing their stories on how they feel they can be recognized for their work. So I think while creating, at least at a national level, creating these policies, we need more stories of girls, more stories of women to talk about what their experience has been. I know about 2 months ago we brought 2 girls here from Kilifi and Pokot, and they were talking about their challenge in trying to be or to start a mechanic, a garage.
Yeah, there was one
and the other girl
wanted to aspire for a political seat
position. Beyond the challenges of harmful cultural practices like FGM, early marriage, those stereotypes that those politics and mechanics are positions for men, but they're pushing on. So in that sense, then, the stories of women are key informants on how we can get this now discussion going. And it will be ongoing for a long time because, attitudes take such a long time to change.
That's very true.
Yeah.
And of course, very important how you brought out the issue of reward. Like, make proper environments, provide the resources, make it easy to be a girl and to be a woman, give women, an easy way of going about their activities. But at the end of the day, still, I'll share with you a story that somebody once shared with me as to how they go about, distributing roles in their family. Tell me what you think. This parent actually does this. During the holidays, they decide to let go the house help. Just go, we don't need your services this time. And then engages the children in the housework. But then again, at the end of the day, for example, the son cleans the car, then you get to be given something.
Right.
Or if you ask for something like a toy or whatever, you are told, then clean my car, and then I give you this much, then you can buy that toy.
Right.
So according to him, he was actually not, it was not child labor, but he was teaching the child that, you need to earn your money. You need to work hard to get your money at the end of the day. But again, also teaching them these kinds of work for a day when the house help will not be around, then they can be able to do it on their own. So I don't know, is that child labor? Is that teaching them money, like most parents would say? Next time I will send them, they will tell me to pay them first before they do it.
Well, I think
them first before they do it.
Well, I think again, it depends on the context, because in the urban areas, and I think it's important that children learn that nothing comes for free. If I put in this work, this time, daddy will give me 20 shillings. And you see that reward it's not saying you're paying them 100 or 1,000 or more. It's just, it could be 5 shillings or 2 shillings. But them understanding the transaction of work, and in return, you get income or recognition. That's fine. I think for children, even saying, look, you did a good job in helping your father, washing your father's car or helping your sister with her homework. That goes a long way. And I think, especially in urban areas right now, we have the infiltration of Western culture. In African culture, children worked. Work is good. Going to the farm, fetching water, helping mom cook, those are very useful tasks because you also learn their values through that interaction.
Very true.
But now that things are changing so much, when we talk of child labor, we're talking about using children for sustained periods with no rewards, really. They're taken advantage of. Look at human trafficking. Girls are misused by people, selling their bodies, especially along the coast. Those are the issues right now that we are grappling with and really trying to bring into the center front of people so that they can understand that this is happening and we need your help as parents, we need your help as teachers, we need your help as government officials in really curbing this behavior. Okay.
Well said. And of course, the issue of housework, yes, it's not bad. But even the boys need to be included, the girls need to be included. Don't exclude the children altogether and say they're still children, let's do all the work as parents. Include them because they get to learn. In our African culture, there are duties that a girl has to know. Make sure you do your girl a favor by letting them actually learn to know those things like cooking ugali, like make sure they know how to cook
washing
ugali.
the car.
Yes.
It's also
Yes. And the boys also have their own duties that they have to know as men, so that at the end of the day, they can be able to deliver in that line. But like you say, modernization coming in and Western culture coming in, the roles have been blurred a bit. So sometimes when you need to be flexible and get to do the roles that are meant for the other gender, times have changed. Just do them and don't complain. And that is where we will be heading to the right direction and provide incentives. Like I was looking at a few details recently, and you find that in some countries, when you look at rape victims, mostly they're affected because it is young girls who were sent on assignments like fetching water or fetching firewood, and they had nobody to protect them, and they were somewhere in the bush on their own, probably a 9 or 10 or 12-year-old alone in the bush looking for firewood, and somebody saw them and took advantage. So even when you're sending your kids on assignments, make sure you provide the right environment and the right resources so that they are not in danger, like fire, whatever.
And the same for boys, because you find in areas where there's cattle raidings, even boys who are taking, herding the cows and goats are suspects, are targeted rather, So I think it's important in trying to figure out the safety of the children.
Even when you send them to the kitchen to prepare something, how safe are they in handling those equipments? Let's look at another issue, early marriage. Yeah, is it hard being a girl? That question is what we asked when we were starting this program. But again, looking at the challenges, there is the aspect of early marriage. Tell us, from where you sit, looking at it, we've campaigned, we've talked about it.
Right.
Where are we as a country?
Well, just last week I had the opportunity to visit Wamba in Samburu for an alternatives to rites passage, which means that the young girls were being initiated into adulthood, but not through female genital mutilation.
Okay. Wow.
And so it's an anti-FGM campaign. Girls as young as 8 years all the way to 13, 14. And you see such determined girls, so eager to learn, with big dreams on becoming doctors, engineers, technicians. And the event was highly supported by the anti-FGM chairperson, who's Honorable Jebi. The governor was there, other government officials. It was AMREF was the one conducting the entire program. And I think because there were reformed cutters who are speaking out, I'd say the message is getting there. But there are communities that still need more targeted messaging around that. Because it's horrendous seeing a girl as young as 8 who's undergone FGM and then is married off. At 8, what sort of understanding do you have on rearing children, on pregnancy, on even menstruation? You've not even begun.
You don't understand.
Yeah.
And marriage is a different world.
Marriage is a different
complex
one.
world that I don't know how an 8-year-old can be able to understand what it takes to sustain a marriage.
How do you
But it
cope?
happens. We have to admit it happens.
It does.
In some communities still. And my question would be, why would a parent be forced to force their 8-year-old or 10-year-old to get into that complex world of marriage? What circumstances?
Right.
Just why?
So the two things that come to mind is, number one, you do what you know. So they underwent it, so it's what happens. So my child will undergo it, So there's that generational thing that happens where you don't really sit and question the usefulness of these things. And it's, the ritualization of childhood to adulthood can be done in other more efficient ways rather than cutting your girls. Because that brings so many issues, fistula or painful childbirth, which are so unnecessary. So I think questioning cultural practices is important. But the other thing is also the aspect of
you're telling me about you're answering the why. Why a parent
absolutely. So I think the second thing, the underlying thing to all these cultural practices tends to be poverty. Because in giving your girl up for marriage, there is the dowry that comes with it, or this number of goats or this number of cows, and also giving up the responsibility of caring for an extra human. So in terms of tackling poverty and thinking of ways we can be more productive in terms of contributing and also getting income, there's that problem. And that's what we're saying.
And even running away from poverty. Some girls have had to run away from home and get married because they see that as an opportunity to come out of a hardship situation.
Live there and go
to
that's
your
very
husband's
true.
house and get a better life there.
Absolutely.
So poverty is another problem.
So that's why I think when we're thinking of development, it has to be models that are more rights focused and think more about girls. And that will think of the little things that will create a change. So that thing of bringing water to the community, electricity so that they don't have to go look for firewood, health clinics, thinking of more sustainable agricultural ways of rewarding women and girls. Those are very important, and those are things that can be instrumental in helping cultures evolve beyond those harmful practices. Yeah.
Of course, you could be, you know, watching and as we talk, you know, somebody would say, you know, times have changed.
Yeah.
We are modern. Those things you're telling us probably are not that common, you know, because we are a modern generation and culture is slowly being revised, if I may say so.
Right.
But actually, it is something that is still inexistent if you're just to look at what is happening in other regions in our country and certain cultures that have not moved on, if I may use that word. It is something that is happening. And there was one survey that was just done recently, a year or two ago, by the Kenya Health Survey, and it gave an interesting list of areas that are most affected when it comes to early marriage, and even gave a list in terms of which area is more affected than which area.
Right.
And still Northeastern is on top of the list.
Absolutely.
And this is Northeastern that was given like 56%, and then Coast is at 41%. Number 3 was Nyanza, with 32%. Then in the Rift Valley down there, they were at 30% cases of early marriage still, and in Western 27%. So just top 5 of areas that are most affected with this issue of early marriage. So even as we are talking about modernity and cultures changing and cultures shaping up, still there are people who believe in the ways of the past. What can we do to change, you know, the mindset? You say it takes long to change attitude, but this is like an emergency, because when you're telling a girl 8 years to go get married, early pregnancy has a lot of consequences. They might just get, you know, they might lose their lives. So this is like an emergency. How do we change this attitude, like in the soonest time possible?
I think what you're already doing is something very important. The media has such a large platform in reaching so many people. And having dialogue such as this, discussion such as this, starts to plant seeds of why do we need to circumcise our girls? Why do we need to marry off our children so soon? And I think in that discussion, it helps us start revising and analyzing some of the things we do. Even the discussion we just had a few minutes ago on parents assigning the bulk of duties on girls. We might have planted a seed to a parent or a group of people right now. And I think in terms of education, there's organizations also that are doing a lot of work on the ground. We're working with organizations such as Uraia, Moving the Goalpost, Women Democracy Network, who are involved in inculcating some of these lessons among communities, and also training them on, you know, how to remove girls from situations that can be harmful into situations that can promote them to be leaders and speakers and peer examples among their peers. So it needs to be a holistic solution in that, as parents, as guardians, as non-governmental organizations, and as government, we each have a role to play. And one actor can't have the bulk of the burden to do that. Even as girls and as women, we have a role to play in that journey, which is assessing your successes, assessing your challenges, and trying to figure out how can I get out of this? Do I need to find a mentor? Do I need to talk to a guardian to help me get out of a harmful situation? Am I being beaten at home? Who can I speak to? What are the resources out there? So as women, the thing is, we live in the best time possible, in that with the development and progress, now we're seeing opportunities to enter spaces we weren't there before, in ICT, in technology, in leadership, in media, in schools. So in terms of opportunities, the sky is the limit. But what we're saying is the challenges we're facing in terms of discrimination and the violence and the harmful practices, together with the people and actors who are trying to stop that, there are ways we can connect with those actors. And I think that's the message in terms of, is it hard to be a girl? what's hard is the challenges facing us. Being a girl is awesome. It's fantastic. It's enjoyable.
Yeah, very true.
But we need to create the best conditions possible for us as humans to thrive. Both girls and boys, men and women, because in us becoming the best we can each be, that's what will really lead to communities and countries that are thriving grounds for their people. And you know, as we talk about this UNICEF and UN resolutions and what they're doing, we also have our Vision 2030.
Yeah.
And visions are there for us to aim for. And so what we're saying is we acknowledge we're not in a perfect society, but each and every person needs to play a role in bringing up children in a way that they'll be the best ever. They'll be the best doctors, they'll be the best nurses, the best housewives, the best technicians, the best anything.
Very true.
So we're not saying that there's one way for children to be. There's not one way for boys to be or girls to be. But there are ways we can help them achieve whatever their dream
they want
is.
to achieve.
Right.
Yes, and of course, you know, you touched on something very important about, you know, I took it out to mean like a cycle. Like most women would do this to their girls because it was done to them, you know. And as we're talking about, you know, sensitizing the community out there, how I wish more women who've gone through these challenges that you're talking about would be part of those conversations to solve. Because when you have stakeholders who've never had the experience talking about it, then it doesn't get home. It doesn't get to the real issue. But if you've gone through FGM, if you've gone through early marriage, if you've gone through all these challenges that are facing girls, then I think that voice would make more sense to speak against it because you understand.
Absolutely. I agree with that.
So people should not shy away. I think it should be part of the conversation.
One of the main issues is that women's issues have always been shrouded in shame. So even having a woman saying, look, I was beaten by my husband, even saying it, even in environments we think are safe, like church, there tends to be shame around it because now there's backlash. Oh, you don't take care of your husband, you aren't providing this, you aren't providing that, you know. Or even talking about FGM and saying, I don't want to undergo the cut, then you're told you're not a woman, you know, the men will not respect you, they'll think you're loose, and you want to sleep around, you know. So I think we need to just fight off the noise around women's issues and talk candidly, like the way we're talking about now.
Talk about domestic violence. Talk about everything that is happening, you know, and get a solution. But then again, talk to us a bit about the cycle. Like, you know, the way you raise your child, they will transfer that. If boys are brought up to believe that that is girl stuff, you know, washing the dishes and doing everything in the house. If they're brought up to believe that, then they will transfer that to their sons. That's the cycle continues. Tell us about how that affects the future generation.
And I think, well, socialization is the aspect of transferring values to the younger generation. And we become what we see. You're the product of what you saw your parents doing, what you learned in school.
I hope I'm a good product.
I mean, cross your fingers. So if you look at young girls, like yesterday, for instance, we were laughing with my dad because my niece was asking my dad, could you please pour some water for me? So my dad was like, ask your auntie, that's their work. Then he's like, he's an old man. But when we were talking with my dad, because I had told him, you know, he knows what work I'm doing. So he's like, you know, it's kind of funny that we need to teach our girls that they can do anything, be anything. But himself, given the Rika he is, there's a sort of respect we tend to give them.
He deserves it.
And deserves. So for him, it was, I guess, that moment where you're like, trying to teach my grandchild one thing, and here I am with this other thing, this other mentality. So I think that's the same way, even in the homestead, we have to sort of think about what value do I hold and what am I transferring to my grandchildren or my children, whether it's positive or negative. So in terms of how women view themselves, growing up in a situation where you're the one doing everything, you're the one cleaning the clothes, you're the one cooking, you're the one caring for the child, you grow up believing that's what you're supposed to do.
What you're meant to do.
And that's why you find us
and you
their
will make
mentality.
your daughter do the same.
Yeah, and that's why we
true.
think it's natural for women to cook, to clean, because it's what we grew up seeing and believing.
Yeah.
And when you see a guy who's a chef, like now there's so many shows about men who are cooks and chefs. When you see him doing that, you're like, oh, he's doing something so special.
Yeah.
And he's being paid so much for it,
Yeah,
you know. So that's where the inequality comes. And I think when we talk about this equality, it's just to say that at the end of the day, we need to give equal value to girls and boys. That's what equality is about. So if it comes in terms of remunerating the work, redistributing the work, then that's why it's important to acknowledge that, you know, she's not more capable than the boy to do the work. And the boy, you know, there are even tasks he'll do faster. So why not, you know, include him in that work?
So incorporation of both is very important because the manner in which you raise them determines how they will raise their children in the future generation. So if you want to stop burdening the girl, then let's stop right now so that they grow up knowing that boys and girls pretty much do the same things. They complement one another in different ways. When they grow up and have their own families, they'll do the same. There's also another challenge that women and girls are facing out there. Yes, we've talked about early marriage, but marriage, again, is another challenge. And I'll tell you why. They say that for a marriage to work, it's the woman. She has to be on the forefront to make the marriage work. But when the negotiations for the marriage are done, the woman is never pretty much involved in the final decisions. Like when you talk about early marriage, most victims will tell you they just saw a couple of guys coming in with sheep or cows, and then the next minute they were told you're going with this guy. And even in marriages that would say happen in the right age, most of the times when dowry negotiations are done, the girl is not involved. So the man would treat you based on how your parents treated him when he came for the negotiation. So women and girls are left out when it comes to, you know, deciding on issues to do with marriage. Tell us about how this is also, you know, a challenge and how it's affecting their families.
I think when we're speaking about the below 18s, the children, as you're saying, yes, there's a problem in terms of they're married off and they've never met who their husband, they've never met the husband before that. They're still very young and are not ready. So I think in that aspect then, the reason we're calling it harmful practices is that they are allocated adult duties at such a young age, which then opens up issues of, you know, death during childbirth, difficult pregnancies, fistulas, malnutrition in the sense that they don't know what to eat during what times, if they're pregnant, for instance. And that's the thing, that the marriage will have consequences that open up other problems for the young girl.
That comes, like they can't speak for themselves because probably this person is older and you can't defend or question or even tell them what you want.
Or even stronger. So you will even find rape ongoing in the marriage, which is just horrendous, trying to think of now what the girl goes through. And I think when we talk about African culture, and even as you're saying, marriage and the rituals around it, there needs more evolution in that aspect. I think at the heart and soul of marriage among now above 18s is a thing of families, bringing families together. And that's something beautiful. So we're not saying get rid of the aspect of negotiations and bringing families together. No. What we're saying is include the party that is getting married. Let her have a say. Hear what she thinks also. So that's what we're saying. It's not necessarily we're calling for a wiping of the culture
it should be
or the practice.
It's important.
Because at the heart of it, it's beautiful to bring people together.
You should see how it happens.
It's quite dramatic.
You know, you have no say in this. The uncles take it away. And it's just them and them. And you know, at the end of the day, you have no say in what is going on.
So in those aspects, we call for the women's voices to be heard. And especially the older women who are now elders should have a say in saying, look, we're in 2016 maybe. How about we have, you know, how about we ask the girl if this is the person she wants to marry.
Very true.
You know,
very true.
Ask the girl if she's being respected in the home after she's married. You know, she's still a person of interest even though she's married elsewhere. But you don't give her away and that's it. And so I think as we come back to thinking about our experiences, the family is quite a strong support system because they're the first people to guide you, shape how you think, protect you. So when thinking of even the macro level of how to support girls and protect them in terms of government, it needs to start at the family level.
Very true.
And then that will progress into the community and all the way now to the government, to be now more inclusive and more conscious of the woman's experiences and the girl's experiences.
Thank you so much for that. And of course, as we just, you know, finish off that issue on early marriage, we still say no child should be a bride. No child should be a bride. Be it a girl, be it a boy. I don't know if boys are forced to get married.
Some are.
Because they say, you know, for a man, you have to wait until you're ready. Ready means being ready financially. And yani just equipping yourself with the right resources and you be a leader and all that. Why not do the same for girls? Wait until they are ready, because girls also need that process to get all that they need to be good wives. So as the men are told, wait until you're ready, wait for the woman to be ready. And of course, just very quickly as we bring this to a close, let's touch on girls' education. You know, as a challenge as well. Where are we in terms of you know, improving on the level in which we educate our girls and give them opportunities in schools? Is there still discrimination when it comes to education?
I think first I'll start by acknowledging that there's been progress in terms of getting girls in school. Where now we're saying there's still some structural barriers because of things like unpaid labor or the chores, the burden, the time burden, or the harmful practices. Those are the things that are now preventing girls from staying in school. So there's progress in taking girls to school, but wengi hawamalizi. Some are getting married.
In fact, it shows in the transition. Like right now as we speak, there are some that did KCPE recently. There were so many, but when they get to secondary school, you'll see like the figures for the girls would go lower. The transition from primary to secondary, again to higher education, the girls keep decreasing. Because of this, the same things we're talking about, early pregnancies, early marriage, FGM, being burdened with too many chores, so you're overwhelmed with schoolwork, home and home stuff. So I think in terms of now what we were saying, recognizing, and now we've managed to quantify exactly how much time is going into things like chores. That's the only way we'll keep progressing. So with policy and being able to enforce this, like girls need to go to school or FGM should be banned, we need strong enforcement by the police, by government, to ensure that girls are staying in school
and girls are going to school. And as well, we need parents to also be more involved in the school life of the children, because you find parents are also busy, very busy nowadays, trying to earn a living. So most of the time wako job, at the office, at the farm. So we need to also check what sort of education is my child getting, what quality of education is the government providing, wanaelewa maths, wanaelewa science, nini wanaelewa, how can I guide them further to go into the direction that they love and they want to do, how can I protect my child on the way to school. You know, there are so many factors, and it takes a nation to raise a child, not even a village. And that's why we're saying every actor needs to step up at the family level, civil society level, government level. We need to do more so that young girls and boys are receiving the best possible education and guidance possible.
Wow, it's been quite an interview there, just addressing that question. Is it hard to be a girl? And we say, no, it's not hard to be a girl, but the challenge is actually what makes it hard. We've talked about quite a few. I know there are many out there, but let's just try and create an environment where girls can grow and take advantage of the opportunities that are out there. I would give you a chance, Susan, to give us your final words, and then we wrap up. And in that include the fact that just tell us a bit about when we achieve quality inclusive education for women, how will the world be? Why should we insist on this? Just tell us your final words.
Speaking to girls specifically, especially those who are below the age of 18, girls out there who want to become doctors, engineers, artists, musicians, there is a way for you to become anything you dream to be. And as the adults and as the guardians, we are here to support the girls in any way they like to be supported. So the main thing I'd say is go to school, put in as much work as possible in excelling in that space, because at the end of the day, hard work gets paid. If you excel with good results, you get a better selection of high schools, and therefore if you do good then in high school, you get a better selection of universities. So there's a progression. But when we think of education in general, I think it will take a lot more from community leaders and elders and parents to continue ensuring that their children are receiving proper education and proper guidance, and you know, for them to be anything they wish to be. I'd also encourage parents to, especially as we go into the holidays, to think more constructively on how the next year can be a time that they help their girls and boys to not only thrive in school but also at home. To what extent am I allowing my daughter to work? Is it 2 hours? Is it 4 hours? Am I checking that her homework is done? Am I ensuring that she's interacting with her friends in a safe way? So I think in terms of taking responsibility as the adults in the community, that's something that needs to be done more greatly, in just keeping an eye out and being our brothers and sisters keepers.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much.
I was having Miss Susan Chege, the CEC of Women and Girls Lead Kenya. She has shared with us her thoughts about what she thinks concerning whether it's hard to be a girl, especially in Kenya, and we've learned a lot. Make sure that you allow the girls to work, but at the end of the day, let not the work prevent them from pursuing the opportunities that are out there, and no child literally should be a bride. And finally, educate the girl child, because if you want an empowered nation, then empower all the genders equally. Just make sure girls and boys have equal access to education and opportunities to be better people. My name is Safin Acheng.